Welcome everybody to this celebration of 30 years of We Are Church. We have first of all an opening prayer, a prayer of thanks. God of love, I thank you for the people in my life who are easy to love. I thank you for my family and friends whose presence can lift the burden of a thorny day. I thank you for the 30 years of We Are Church, working and praying for renewal in our church. I thank you for Martha, Christian, and Valerie, whose prophetic leadership we celebrate today. Amen. I'm repeating myself here somewhat, but we are celebrating 30 years of We Are Church. We have three wonderful speakers who have been with We Are Church all these 30 years. They have three hearts of gold. They are the prophets of our time, ordinary, decent followers of Jesus of Nazareth. Our first speaker tonight is Martha Heitzer. Martha Heitzer is one of the founding trinity of We Are Church, Austria. She took a quote from Pope Pius XII. The laity do not belong to the church, they are the church. In 1996, We Are Church Austria and Germany were awarded the Herbert Haag Prize for Freedom in the Church. In the Wir sind Kirche newspaper, Martha wrote recently, Aus Liebe zur Kirche und in Sorge sie. Out of love for our church and out of concern for our church. That was the motto in 1995. And it continues to describe our engagement to renew our Catholic Church. When she was asked why she accepted appointments to work for reform, Martha replied, because I love the church. Martha, over to you.
Hello, everybody. Thank you for the nice introduction, Corn. I'll tell you something about our beginning. In autumn 1989, the people in East Germany shouted, "We are the people." And then the Berlin Wall fell. 6 years later, we shouted, "We are church." And more than 3 million people followed us all over the world. Sorry. What had happened? In the spring of 1995, allegations of abuse against Cardinal Grohr of Vienna became public. The reaction of the church leadership was to indignantly reject the allegations and to reverse the roles of victim and perpetrator by degenerating and accusing the victim. There was no sign of insight or apology, let alone any willingness to investigate the deeper causes of the susceptibility to abuse in the church, which are mandatory celibacy, a very restrictive sexual morality, the position of women, for example. This situation damaged the reputation of the church leadership and thus also of the entire church to an unprecedented extent. As religious instructors, we felt the dramatic decline in acceptance of the church, particularly among young people, on a daily basis, and thus became close witnesses to a deep crisis in the church. So, in 1995, Thomas Blankensteiner and his pupils formulated our goals. First, shared decision-making, full equality for all genders and all ministries, Third, a free choice for priests between a celibate and a non-celibate lifestyle. 4, a positive evaluation of sexuality. And 5, magnanimity instead of a rigid adherence to the law. Yeah, and then the three of us called for a church referendum. Almost 2.5 million people in Austria and later on in Germany and Southern Tyrol signed it. In doing so, they stood up and declared that they were the people of God. They renounced childlike obedience and asserted, "We are church." This triggered two things. We frightened many people, and we became empowered. The space of freedom that this opened up is large, wide, dangerous, and promising. Under the pressure and loss of reality imposed by a large authoritarian ecclesiastical regime, something emerged that is very much part of Christianity: fearlessness. We did not ask what would come next, what the outcome would be. We stood up and acted accordingly to our conscience. In this way, many women and men declared themselves to be God's active people. We no longer saw ourselves as objects to be cared for and patronized by clerics, but rather as God's common people, all on an equal footing, all on eye level. Thousands of women and men stood up to this with us, even in the most remote villages and towns. Unknown people who are never mentioned distributed lists and collected signatures, experiencing resistance, but also widespread acceptance and showing fearlessness. It was a new form of protest. There had been synods and petitions, declarations, and vehement inquiries to the Vatican before. But now it was no longer about church committees, universities, organized groups, but about the rank and file who experience the everyday life in the church and find their own voice. The fact that such a citizens' movement could be so successful, despite having no organizational or financial backing, also aroused the interest of politicians. The future Austrian president, Heinz Fischer, came to Innsbruck to meet Thomas Blankensteiner, where he showed great interest in our campaign. You know, we had no computer, no cell phone, just a telephone and a little fax machine in the Blankensteiner house. What is the space for freedom that has been opened up by the Church People's Petition? It is about a different kind of community between women and men, about freedom from ecclesiastical and sexual paternalism. It is about a relationship between the clergy and the rank and file that is free of domination. It goes against the core of Roman culture of domination, which restricts, controls, patronizes, and punishes people. It is about creating a detoxified atmosphere of understanding and trust. We Are Church has been calling for all this for 30 years now. The church will not be able to regain the credibility it had lost over decades so quickly. We never have claimed or believed that implementing our demands would trigger a new influx. of people into the church in the short term. We have never been concerned with quick, superficial success, but with a fundamental reconciliation of the Christian message and church structures. And we have certainly achieved a great deal, even if our demands have not yet been implemented in full. But the change in mentality this has triggered in all circles of the church is, on closer inspection, overwhelming. Who would have dreamed of a bishop of Rome that he would withdraw his authority to the point of asking the self-critical question, who am I to judge a person who seeks God and is of goodwill, regardless of their sexual orientation? Who could overlook the fact that, especially in recent synodal years, the insight has matured that the una sancta catholica cannot live its faith in a prescribed worldwide uniformity, but rather unfolds its vitality in a united, rooted in the diversity of God? After all, who can fail to see that alongside the teaching of doctrine, the contours of a pastoral teaching are becoming apparent in the church, one that emphasizes the people's lives, just as Jesus of Nazareth exemplified. Above all, who can overlook the fact that in many parishes, women perform all kinds of religious services and act as deacons even without having been ordained. They celebrate the sacraments with those concerned by taking the lead. In many a parish, the priest lives quite officially in the rectory with his wife and children. That there are even parishes without a priest, just a lay parish leader, and the people realize that they do not need an ordained priest. Who can overlook the fact that there is an out in church movement where church employees profess their queerness? We certainly did not achieve this all on our own, but we made a significant contribution to bringing about this change in thinking. We are church. The name is more relevant than ever. If Catholicism loses its open-minded people, it will degenerate into a fundamentalist segment of the new right and its populist politicians, who like to use the absolutist constitution of the church as a model for their anti-democratic goals. We very much hope that the Synod on Synodality will be an important step towards building a fraternal and sisternal church, that the entire people of God, including the clergy, will learn what equality means in its ultimate radicality. After all our demands are already being discussed at the Synod, even if they have been relegated to vague study groups as hot topics. We remain vigilant and ensure that synodality does not become a sleeping pill. So it remains true, yes, after 30 years of We Are Church, it is all the more urgent. The churches journeying together as the people of God. In the diverse community of the baptized, it can effectively realize its identity on an equal footing, on eye level, in equality. Thank you.
Thank you, Martha. That was wonderful. That was powerful. The opening up the space of freedom for us that our church has achieved. The fearlessness, and you embodied that fearlessness in what you and Gert have done. There's no doubt about that. No doubt about it. I'm going to go straight ahead for our next speaker, because we're going to have the three speakers and then we'll have our Q&A. Our next speaker is Christian Weisler. He has been spokesperson of We Are Church Germany for 30 years. By training, he is a town planner. He is widely known and respected for his commitment to reform in our church. He brings multitasking to a new level. He and his wife Renate are a great team and a great example of a committed Christian couple working for peace, justice, and compassion in our world. They are following the difficult path from a clerical church to a church of the people of God. Christian, over to you.
Yeah, welcome to you all. I would like to begin by thanking you, dear Martha, and dear Austrians, for your prophetic actions 30 years ago. How did it start in Germany back then? In 1995, on the 6th of July, I read on page 1 of the newspaper in Hanover, my then hometown, about the phenomenal success of the Kirchenvolksbegehren, the Church People's Petition in Austria. That same evening, I rang Bernhard de Florian in Austria and inquired about all the details. Of course, we had heard about the petition in Austria. At that time, I was part of the coordinating team of the German network Initiative Kirche von unten, Initiative Church from below. But we hadn't yet recognized the explosive nature of that petition. In Germany at that time, we didn't have any abuse scandal as prominent as that of the Cardinal of Vienna. But the reform issues had already been under discussion in Germany since the Second Vatican Council and the subsequent Würzburg Synod in the 1970s. At this German synod, bishops and laity had already spoken out in favor of women deacons, for example, but the Vatican never gave an answer. So in the summer of 1995, we quickly agreed in Germany to adopt the concise text from Austria 1:1. We only added a preamble to it in order to include the topic of economism, which is important for Germany. Some theologians advised us to refine the 5 Austrian demands theologically, but we wanted to avoid the endless discussions that were to be expected. Together with Hans Küng, we launched the German Kirchenvolksbegehren, Church People's Petition, in Cologne in mid-September 1995. We did it just like you in Austria, without mobile telephones, without the internet, and without the social media that are so influential today. Now you can see one, actually this is the first cartoon, and we are very proud that we got Gerhard Meester, a very important cartoonist in Germany, and he gave us so many beautiful cartoons. He's a very good company in our work. This reads 1995 Unterschriftensammlung Wir sind Kirche. The fact that 16 of the 27 German bishops had banned the collection of signatures on church premises was free advertising for us. The lively and also controversial discussions in many parishes and in the media remain unforgettable. After 8 highly active weeks, we ended up with 1.8 million signatures. Martha told us that altogether there were almost 2.5 million signatures in German-speaking countries. In relation to the number of Catholics, this was roughly the same proportion as in Austria. However, the then chairman of the German Bishops' Conference, Bishop Karl Lehmann, wrote to his fellow bishops, quote, "The Church People's Petition was neither a suitable method nor a suitable contribution to clarifying the issues raised, which, incidentally, we would not consider to be the most urgent in the current situation of the Church." And he went on, "We would certainly discuss the initiative again, but under no circumstances would we pass resolutions of the expected kind." Quote end. The Central Committee of German Catholics, the laity, warned us of the difficulties of church reform. But the fact is, over the past 30 years, both a large proportion of the German bishops and the Central Committee had to change their positions significantly. But who at that time would have thought that a collection of signatures launched in Austria in 1995? Martha gave us a very good explanation. Who would think that that would become a seedbed for a worldwide reform movement? Just a year earlier, Pope John Paul II and his prefect of the faith, Joseph Ratzinger, had forbidden any discussion of the ordination of women. Ratzinger intervened several times with secret letters against Wir sind Kirche. In 2001, he even placed all cases of sexual violence worldwide under the papal secret, and he did that with the threat of excommunication. This was only lifted by Pope Francis. Those were difficult early years for us, but we remained active and we networked. In January 1996, the Austrian and German Kirchenvolksbegehren were awarded the Herbert Haag Prize for Freedom in the Church. In Germany, we formed the Kirchenvolksbewegung, Wir sind Kirche, Church People's Movement, We Are Church, at the beginning of 1996. Since then, we have been actively involved in the national Catholics and Protestant Church Congresses, Katholikentage und Evangelische Kirchentage. At the end of 1996, Valerie Stroud will report on this, we founded We Are Church International in Rome. We did a lot together with the French Bishop Jacques Gayot from Évreux, who was punished in 1995 by the Vatican. He was effectively our bishop. Two very special activities in Germany. In the 1990s, the German bishops were forced by the Vatican to withdraw from the pregnancy conflict counseling in Germany that was organized by the state. Rome would not allow abortion under no circumstances. Wir sind Kirche helped to found the Frauenwürde Association, Women's Dignity. With Frauenwürde, Catholic women and men set up their own counseling network and have been running it ever since. The second important activity, long before the bishops, Wir sind Kirche operated an emergency telephone, a helpline, from 2002 to 2012, which provided counseling and support to more than 400 people affected by sexual violence by priests and religious. Looking back, it took far too long for the official church to realize, take action against sexual violence apart from episcopal guidelines. This still is very traumatic, especially for those affected by sexual abuse. Up to this day, compensation and, in some dioceses, taking action against sexual violence is still unsatisfying. Some have not even begun. Guilt and malpractice are only admitted in bits and pieces. The statute of limitations is invoked, or the Church declares that it is not responsible for the private lives of priests. 2010 was the annus horribilis for the Church in Germany, after the disclosure of physical and spiritual sexual violence at the Jesuits' College in Berlin. More and more scandals came to light. In 2011, the German bishops launched a dialogue process, as the Austrian bishops did. However, this process, controlled by the bishops, was not really successful and ended in 2015 with great disappointment. And then it was not until the publication of the abuse study in 2018, commissioned by the German bishops, that everyone was shaken up. The bishops now felt compelled to ask the laity, the Central Committee of German Catholics, for help. With joint responsibility, they launched the synodal path, which is not a synod under canon law. It is a novelty. Some say it is a nullity. This is because its deliberations are not yet binding. Wir sind Kirche is closely following this highly exciting process, which was launched at the end of 2019 and will end in 2026. But on purpose, we do not actively participate in it. The synodal path comprises the four subject areas: power and separation of powers in the Church, sexuality and partnership, priestly existence today, and women in ministries and offices in the Church. These areas were recognized by the German abuse study as the risk factors for abuse and cover-ups. They are precisely the topics that, one could say prophetically, were formulated in 1995 by Wir sind Kirche in Austria in response to the abuse scandal in Vienna. These topics have also crystallized as important pastoral issues in the global synodal process that was initiated by Pope Francis in 2021. It became clear at the two assemblies of the World Synod in 2023 and 2024. At these assemblies, women were also able to participate in counseling and decision-making for the first time. This can be seen as a hopeful development in our Church. Wir Church International closely followed these world synods in Rome. But in our Church, we still suffer from oppressive clerical power structures. victims of abuse, women, and queer people in particular, still experience discrimination within the Roman Catholic Church. In addition, relativizing the reform steps of the Second Vatican Council, John Paul II and Benedict strengthened the influence of neoconservative and ultra-conservative forces in the Church. The growing currents of supposedly Bible-believing evangelicals and right-wing conservative Catholic circles are a cause for great concern. They are also closely networked with right-wing political forces. The statements made by US Vice President J.D. Vance, who converted to Catholicism, and the hype surrounding the murdered US influencer Charlie Kirk are just two highly alarming examples. Our faith and the churches are challenged in the face of this new destructive zeitgeist around the world. This fundamentally contradicts the message of Jesus. The urgently needed turnaround came in March 2013 with the election of Pope Francis. He has taken up and continued the reform impulses of the Council in many large and small steps. Despite all the resistance, particularly in the Vatican, in 12 years he has changed the Roman Catholic Church more fundamentally than many had expected. With the worldwide participation of the Church base in synods, and with the right to vote not only for bishops, Pope Francis has initiated a turning point in the history of the Church that has raised great hopes and expectations. This cannot be reversed. Pope Francis' rediscovery of synodality and subsidiarity are also strong prophetic signs. They are ways of acting in the face of the dangerous growth of autocratic systems of power in the political world. After his election, Pope Leo immediately promised to continue the reform process initiated by Pope Francis. Expectations of him are high, but some of his previous statements have also irritated us. However, this and the new conservative and ultra-conservative forces should not discourage us. Let us support Pope Leo so that the Church succeeds in tackling the upcoming decisions in a synodal manner. Above all, the local churches have now to become active. Unfortunately, despite the mandate of the final paper of the World Synod, up to today, too little is happening in the local churches, also in Germany. In Germany, Wir sind Kirche has therefore networked closely with reform-oriented Catholic associations, initiatives, and new reform groups that have emerged in recent years, such as Maria 2.0, Out in Church of homosexuals and queer people, Religious Women for Human Dignity, and parish initiatives and priest initiatives. For Pope Leo to be a successful pontiff, a real bridge builder, he will have to incorporate the Reformed Catholic bridge pillar, that's us, which is based on the Second Vatican Council, and to incorporate it into all processes and debates. The fact that representatives of the We Are Church International will be attending the Synod meeting in Rome in October at the invitation of the Vatican is an absolute first. The meeting is called Jubilee of the Synodal Teams. We will not give up our strategic hope, sustainable confidence, and our progressive, positive narrative. This is a task that We Are Church, Wir sind Kirche, has been fulfilling for 30 years together with many other global reform forces. The three words power, lack of power, hope are the motto of the conference to mark the 30th anniversary of We Are Church Germany at the beginning of November this year in Nuremberg. You are all welcome to come to Nuremberg and to join us there. Thank you so much again, dear people in Austria, for giving us the impetus that is now having a great impact via the synodal path in Germany all the way to the World Synod and hopefully beyond. Thank you.
Thank you, Christian. Thank you very much for that clear summary of the last 30 years and all that you have been doing in Germany. Particularly the German synodal path is something that has impressed me and that is leading the way in the world. Also, I am looking forward to being with you in Nuremberg. I love the motto, power, lack of power, hope. And boy, do we need hope, as we've always needed hope. And I'm looking forward to being there. On to our third, but by no means our last speaker. Valerie Stroud was in Rome in 1996 when We Are Church International was founded. She is a force of nature who willingly cares for her neighbours, her community, and her church. She wields technology online to beat Darth Vader and takes no nonsense from anyone. She is a formidable lady, a great colleague, and a wonderful friend. Valerie will tell us some of the history of We Are Church in pictures. Valerie, over to you.
Wow, Christian, what an introduction. I don't see myself as half of those things. Just thank you too for Martha and Christian. Oh, that was a wonderful introduction. You know, it really sort of sped us through how we all got going. I think in We Are Church, one of the most important things is friendship. It's what keeps me going, what keeps me involved. We fall out, we have arguments, we don't all agree. But when we meet, we hug each other, we are friends. It's what the church should all be about. Anyway, enough of that. My task is to give you a bit of light relief, because we've heard an awful lot of information. So I'm going to do it with pictures. So let me share my screen and off we go. We start here. The background, oh, by the way, I've got to get through this in 15 minutes, and 30 years in 15 minutes is going to take some doing. So grab your reins, get firm in your saddle, and we're going to gallop through it. So hither, as I go back to the background to the screen, this was our first sort of logo for the international movement, and it shows the sun rising over the horizon of mountains and difficulties and so on. And we loved the quote of St. John the 23rd. It is yet dawn, but the sun is in its rising and has already set our hearts aglow. And that's where we set off. As we begin, I'd also like to pay tribute to all the people who've walked with us over the last 30 years, and the many, or not many, who've sadly died. I won't name them all because I might miss something out, and that would be unforgivable. But let's, in our prayers, just remember them and give great thanks for them. The first logo, or the first picture, is from South Tyrol. And here you have three intrepid ladies collecting signatures and talking about the Kirchenvolksbegehren. When we met in Rome, we were 11 countries. And our experience, I think, echoed that in Austria and Germany. But we also were not as large. It was more difficult for us. There was a lot of fear around. You know, to get people to actually want to be acknowledged, especially in the UK, was nigh on impossible. They were stuck in their pews, they were hiding behind the pew in front, and they certainly didn't want to raise their heads above the parapets. But Germany and Austria gave us hope and excitement worldwide. And that got us planning. In the UK, we had an umbrella organisation, Jubilee People, which covered a number of organisations. And we came together. And oh, were we excited? Were we full of hope? This took us forward. And we started planning for our own declaration. And that was going on in countries all over the world. Let's go to the next slide. And here we have Thomas Plankensteiner addressing our meeting, which I now understand was in a cellar in Rome. I didn't realize that at the time, but, you know, I was a newbie out experiencing this wonderful world of international friendship and companionship. We were really keen to get together. We didn't underestimate the difficulties. And from that meeting came this friendship that I've already spoken of. We did lots of things together. We ate together. We planned how we might go forward. We discussed the 5 demands from Austria and Germany and how we could use them for the rest of the world. We also, on the Sunday morning, joined the community in San Polo, run by Giovanni Fransoni, who was a deposed abbot from the Basilica of St. Paul outside the walls. And we went along. I mean, I certainly thought we were going to be in a church. And, you know, I was ready to sit in the serried rows and face forward. Oh, none of that. This was a hall. When we went in, everybody was sitting in a circle. Fransoni was sitting on one side. We all joined in the liturgy of the word. The liturgy of the Eucharist complied with the precepts of the church, but we were included in various subtle ways. And we all received communion in great joy together. Italians and our friends and companions all over the world were with us. At the end, we thought it was going to be like a normal mass, you know, where you sweetly walk out and say goodbye to everybody. But none of that. We were shepherded to one side while tables came out, tablecloths were spread, plates were put out, chairs arranged around. And there was this wonderful welcoming spread, and we were ushered to join the community. Oh my goodness, to me, it was church. It was wonderful. Let's go on. This is Elfriede Haas, our first spokesman. Elfriede was not elected at that first meeting. She was acclaimed. She stood out by a mile. Don't think I'm wrong. She could speak 4 languages, switching between them just like that, on and off. I mean, at press conferences, she was marvellous. And she had a team of 4 people. She had Luigi de Paoli from Italy, who represented the South. We had Maureen Fiedler from the United States, representing the Americas. We had, of course, Thomas Plankensteiner representing the origins and Elfriede herself. And it's worth noting, at that time we had a spokesperson. We didn't have a chair, we didn't have a president, and we've never had presidents. We are all equal. Doesn't matter how big our organization or how small. Yes, Elfriede, you taught me a lot. You taught me patience. You taught me how to talk to people. I personally am very indebted to you. And here we have the samples of 2 declarations and a charter. I couldn't put them all up, it would have filled the screen. But the Roman Catholic one in the UK was more educational. We wanted people to discuss these things, so it was rather longer than the Austrian and German ones. And similarly so with the New Zealand Charter. But this shows you it was all over the world. I'd almost call it our home. It's where we went to and walked past in 1996. It's where we started out in our pilgrimage in 1997, where we took 3 million signatures to Rome. It's St. Paul outside the walls. As I say, that's the church I expected to go to for our Mass the previous day, but it wasn't to be. And this here, where my pointer is Bishop Jacques Guyot. In the eyes of the Vatican, he was a bit of a naughty boy. He welcomed prostitutes and the homeless and, LGBT, people who were undesirable, just like Jesus did, but the Vatican didn't like that. So they deposed him from Evora and sent him out to Parthenia in North Africa. Now, Bishop Guyot laughed with us over this because it's under the sands of the Sahara. To the normal people, it doesn't exist. So he said, well, I've got a diocese, and it's a diocese that stretches around the world. Anybody who feels they aren't part of their diocese, you're welcome. He was a great hope. He's now sadly died, but thank you, Bishop Guyot. In 1997, we gathered as 500 people from all over the world for a huge weekend of celebration and to take our petition to Rome. And here we have the Spanish students. We sang and we waited and we waved in St. Peter's Square, and probably you can recognize some of the backs of heads there. Meanwhile, 2 of our number were ascending the steps to the bronze door and going through, and that's another tale in itself. But I say I could do 3 or 4 2-hour sessions on the history of our church and the adventures we've had. But this once again was a meeting of great joy. Unfortunately, we wanted to celebrate together, and this didn't happen well because no church in Rome would allow us to use its space for 500 of us to celebrate Word and Eucharist. So, with a sense of humour, Elfriede and our German friends had arranged for us to use the vegetable market. Now, I couldn't find a picture of it, but it was something that just sticks in my mind. There we were, 500 of us, the place smelling like the stable in Bethlehem, under a cover, a big awning, and we had cleared it up first. And we had a wonderful celebration. And just to make sure it was true to what was regulated by the institution, we had a young Polish priest with us who allowed us to lead it, get on with it, but he was there to sort of authenticate it, as you might say. It was a wonderful weekend. But let's go forward to 1998. where we instigated a consultation around the world about a Pope for the time to come, Bishop of Rome and a universal pastor. And this is just a small extract of the whole thing. But I think the important thing is it ignited a flame around the world, and 149 organisations signed up to it. On to 1999. Now, one of the things we decided to do was to shadow the synods held by the bishops in Rome. And the one just before this had been a synod on the Americas, which I think had started us off our discussion. But the Forum of European Christians, where we gathered at Santa Severa, 20 miles north of Rome, and it was a retreat centre for young people, so it wasn't exactly a 5-star hotel. I think probably half a star would be more exact, but we had a wonderful time. 50, 60, 70 people of us there discussing, talking, celebrating. And out of this, we wrote a statement, and it covered these 8 points, which were also the points covered by the bishops. And we sent them to them. 2001, we went to the synod on the role and the work of bishops. Once again, we gathered people from all over the world to Rome. We had marvellous discussions for a weekend. We gathered a sheet. We went to present it to the home of the General Secretary of the Synod, where we met an extensive police presence, and where poor Christian and I had to surrender my passport and his identity card in order to deliver this letter through the letterbox. We also had to reveal it first. So, repression and restriction were alive and well. So, trembling in our boots, with having the police sort of breathing down our necks, we did our job. And then we wanted to let off our balloons over the Vatican. So they stopped all the traffic for us, and we spread across the road. And here's the picture of the joy of us doing that. From 2002 until 2010, we were still continuing our 2-yearly meetings. There was a lot of consolidation, which there always is, and when you're putting together any organisation, and we were busy keeping hope alive. Now, we also need to mention that in those days, we were still in your cameras with your roll of film, and you take it along to the local chemist or whatever to have it developed or do it yourself. So photographs were in short supply. But we were present at the 2005 conclave in Rome. And once again, Christians spearheaded that. And we were there talking to the press, talking to the media, holding a press conference. And we also had the 10-year celebration with Austria in Innsbruck in 2005. And I remember travelling there with Elizabeth Winkley, my co-worker in We Are Church UK. On to the next slide. 2011, the American Catholic Council in Detroit. Oh, what a weekend that was. 2,000 people, not with the blessing of the Bishop of Detroit, I might add, who was quite difficult. But here you have got us. You've got our stole that we were given, and you can see us all wearing as we go up to communion in the top photo. And in the bottom one is just a picture of us all there. We had people like Anthony Padovano, Joan Chichester speaking to us. We had breakout groups where we discussed and shared ideas. It was really a great weekend. Thank you, America, for your hospitality. At 2013, we were at the conclave. You've got a couple of pictures here. You've got Intrepid Christian, hosting the press conference with Anthony Padovano, Paul Collins from Australia, Michael Walsh from the UK, and Martha Heitzer from Austria, and Marilyn Hutton, who's married to Paul Collins, also from Australia there. And just to show you that I'm not boasting when we say we eat together, here we have got the team on that occasion enjoying a well-earned dinner together. Also in 2013, but also 2017, 2018, 2019, 22, 23, 24, and 25, and 2016, we were in Asia. We sent a representative to the All Forum of the Asian Youth Academy and Asian Theology Forum. And one of the features of that, which you can see in the top photograph from 2017, is our representative spent 2 or 3 days with a community away from the city in which they're at. And that could be Indonesia, the Philippines, Thailand, all over Asia. And they joined in with that community and lived as one of them and joined in the work they do. And there we've got a picture of Martha sitting there with the little boy on her lap with the friends she made there. And you can read a lot about it on our website. 2017, we decided to have, I would call it a bit of fun. You know, we have to be a little bit light-hearted but serious with it. And we remembered that 500 years before, Martin Luther had nailed the 95 Theses to the church door. So we decided we'd go out and we'd nail our Church Reform Now posters to church doors. And some people couldn't get in the churches. Some people displayed them outside, as Celine from Ireland is doing there. And we have got a lady from America there showing it, how it was displayed there. In 2018, we decided that Pentecost, the coming down of the Holy Spirit, red is the colour of the Holy Spirit. Let's put on red stoles or red jumpers. And we invited people all over the world to do just that. And you might remember 2018 when you went to Mass, that there were people with you with red stoles on. And here we've got a group from Ireland on the left, and we've got Martha, Gerd, and a friend there in Austria. And Synod of Bishops. As I said earlier, we've been a shadow synod for the synods all the way through. And here we've got 2 pictures. The top one, sorry, it's a little out of focus, but we don't want to identify any bishops, do we? We want to give them anonymity. And we've got the traditional, the bishops facing forward, the Pope facing them, and at the end of the synod, the Pope would issue a statement. At the bottom, we have got the way Pope Francis had it done in 2023 and 2024, with laity and clergy, bishops, cardinals, and himself sitting at a table over to the right, discussing in groups around tables. What a sea change. Our church also has regular councils, as I said earlier, every 2 years. This is just a flavour. You've got here people from Italy and the Netherlands. In small groups we discuss. We have prayer time, and here's our vigil outside St. Peter's. We have got here from 2021, when we did a lot online, but then in 2022, we have hybrid councils, both with Zoom and people who can be there present. In 2023 and 2024, We were very much in evidence, both in Prague at the regional gathering for the synod. And here you have got people with their placards in Prague. And you've got here a meeting with Professor Thomas Halleck, a great man. It's well worth reading his books. We have got the vigil in Rome in 2024 and our equality banner, which we displayed in St. Peter's, Rome. And I think if I say fun, it's serious fun, but you can make a point quite well and be just a little bit light-hearted about it. So on the left there, from New Zealand, they instigated purple shoes. And it's to say that it's women walking towards the Vatican to be included fully in the church. And here we've got a row of them in 2023 heading off towards the Vatican. In the bottom right, on many occasions, the Women's Ordination Conference has let out pink smoke over the Vatican. And here we've got, and once again, it's a feature of We Are Church. We're not serious, solemn people. We're happy people. We smile. And above right, last year, we put on a satire. What if instead of a synod of men, it was a synod of women bishops? And the problem before them was not of women being ordained, but of men being ordained. And here we have one poor man who has a lot of courage coming to them and asking, please, I would like to be ordained. I have a calling. And you can see the women fully representing the outrage of the episcopate at such a suggestion. And here we have something which has become very much in vogue in recent years. You'll see our T-shirt about where we're asking for equality for all, for women, for laity, for LGBTQ+, and for married people. And that's not just them, but the clergy and the bishops, everybody together in the church. And so I come to the last slide. And this was courage. After the closing mass for the synod last year, our people who were there unfurled this banner. And you can see people on the left-hand side looking at it. And once again, as I close, to reiterate our 5 goals: shared decision-making, full equality for all genders, free choice over a celibate lifestyle, positive evaluation of sexuality, good news instead of a threatening message. Thank you. Thank you for listening. I hope you have kept up with the gallop and we've got there still in good order.
Thank you, Valerie. Thank you very much for that. The picture tells 1,000 words. It's worth 1,000 words, and you've just proved that in spades. I particularly like the fun bits at the end, to attract attention, to be noticed, and to get our message across. If you laugh with us, you're on our side. Just a thanks to everybody for taking part in this celebration, which is by no means over. We have in 30 years achieved a lot. We mightn't have achieved all our 5 goals, but 30 years ago, we were seen as heretics. Today, our 5 goals are all on the table for discussion at the Synod and in every country around the world to a greater or lesser degree. Our work must continue going forward, and we will be doing that. Our celebration is going to continue. We have got our meeting in Linz for We Are Church Austria from the 10th to the 12th of October. All are welcome to come along there, I am assured, and I will be there with others too, which is good. And then in Nuremberg, in Germany, from the 6th to the 9th of November, We Are Church Germany is having their celebration for 30 years as well. And in between times, we would be in Rome from the 24th to the 26th of October. For the first time, We Are Church International as a group being invited by the Synod office to take part in the Jubilee of the Synod. So we're pleased that a delegation of 8 of us will be traveling to Rome for those meetings from 4 different countries, from Germany, from Austria, from Italy, and from Ireland. So it's one step at a time. We're moving forward, and our goals are getting closer. Not in the way that we would have perhaps thought they would be, but they are certainly there on the table. So thank you all very much for taking part. And I want to finish up with a little prayer, a piece of St. Patrick's breastplate, a prayer for protection. I arise today through the strength of heaven, the light of the sun, the radiance of the moon, the splendor of fire, the speed of lightning, the swiftness of wind, the depth of the sea, the stability of the earth, the firmness of rock. Christ with me, Christ before me, Christ behind me, Christ in me, Christ beneath me, Christ above me, Christ on my right, Christ on my left, Christ when I lie down, Christ when I sit down, Christ when I arise, Christ in the heart of everyone who thinks, Christ in the mouth of everyone who speaks, Christ in every eye that sees, and Christ in every ear that hears. Amen. Thank you all very much. Oh, back to our 5 goals. Back to our 5 goals. Excellent. They're still there and we're still working on them, and we'll be raising our balloons in Rome and elsewhere.